hearing on the nominations of Nayak to serve as Assistant Secretary of Labor for Policy, Taryn Mackenzie Williams to serve as Assistant Secretary of Labor for Disability Employment Policy, and Doug Parker to serve as Assistant Secretary of Occupational Safety and Health. Ranking Member Burr and I will each have an opening statement, and then I will introduce the witnesses, and after they give their testimony, senators will each have 5 minutes for a round of questions. Before we begin, I again want to walk through the COVID-19 safety protocols that are in place today. As you can see, we're in a large hearing room today, and senators remain 6 feet apart. But as I said at our last committee meeting, I am talking with Senator Burr and committee members about how we are going to change these protocols going forward, given the change in guidance from the Office of Attending Physician. So for all members' awareness, I expect following the break, our hearings will look and operate more closely to how they did before the pandemic, with accommodations for those who require additional safety measures. And again, I just really want to thank all of our clerks and everyone who've worked through all of this to help us all stay safe and healthy. And again, while we are unable to have the hearing fully open to the public or media for in-person attendance, live video is available on our committee website at help.senate.gov. And if anyone needs accommodations, including closed captioning, you can reach out to the committee or the Office of Congressional Accessibility Services. We received Mr. Nayak's formal nomination on April 27th, his Office of Government Ethics paperwork, including his public financial disclosures and ethics agreement on May 3rd, and his committee paperwork on May 12th. We received Ms. Williams' formal nomination on April 22nd, her Office of Government Ethics paperwork on April 30th, and her committee paperwork on May 18th. And we received Mr. Parker's formal nomination on April 12th, his Office of Government Ethics paperwork on April 15th, and his committee paperwork on May 14th. I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for joining us today, and also to welcome Mr. Nayak's wife, Rebecca, Ms. Williams' husband, Reggie, and mother, Shirley, and Mr. Parker's wife, Lee, and her 2-month-old daughter, Rose, who's really being great back there right now. Thank you all for joining us today. If we are going to end this pandemic and build back stronger and fairer from the most unequal economic crisis in recent history, we have to address the problems COVID put a glaring spotlight on and the inequities it has made worse, like job loss, that has disproportionately hurt women, workers of color, workers with disability, and workers paid low wages. We have to raise the federal minimum wage and eliminate the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers, youth workers, and workers with disabilities. We have to make sure every worker has paid leave and quality, affordable child care, and no worker has to choose between their family or their health and their paycheck. We have to eliminate bias and discrimination and ensure all workers get fair pay, equal opportunity, and the accommodations they need in the workplace. We also have to make sure workplaces are safe, and not just against pandemics, but free from unsafe working conditions, environmental hazards, and sexual harassment and assault. And we need to protect and strengthen the right to form or join a union and collectively bargain for better working conditions, wages, and benefits. In short, we have a long list of big challenges ahead. And to tackle those challenges, we need committed, qualified leaders working with us at the Department of Labor. Leaders who understand our economy is working great for those at the top, but not so well for everyone else, and who will do everything they can to change that. We need people like Mr. Nayak, Ms. Williams, and Mr. Parker. Mr. Nayak is currently a senior advisor at the department and has previously served in the Solicitor's Office as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy and Deputy Chief of Staff. In those various roles, he has worked on a broad portfolio, including workforce development, worker protection, counter-trafficking, overtime pay, health and safety, retirement security, and more. He has also worked twice at the National Employment Law Project, including most recently as Deputy CEO. As an advocate and a policymaker, he has shown time and again his commitment to empowering workers, supporting families, and advancing equity. I have no doubt that if confirmed as Assistant Secretary for Policy, he will do just that. Ms. Williams is a similarly excellent choice for the role of Assistant Secretary for Disability Employment Policy. Ms. Williams is a champion for people with disabilities, a reputation she has earned through her years of service at the Department's Office of Disability Employment Policy, where she led agency efforts to build pathways to competitive, integrated employment for people with disabilities, at the White House, where she served as a liaison to the disability community, at the Center for American Progress, where she led CAP's efforts to build anti-poverty programs, and even here on the Help Committee, where she worked for Chair Harkin. When Ms. Williams testified before this committee about health inequities and COVID-19 response a few months ago, her knowledge as an expert and passion as an advocate for people with disabilities, qualities which will make her so well suited to the role she's been nominated for, were on clear display. Finally, we have Mr. Parker, who has worked to protect workers in his state throughout this pandemic as Chief of California's Division of Occupational Safety and Health, starting with his move to swiftly issue health guidance back in February of 2020, when there were only 13 cases of COVID-19 in the country. But his record fighting for workers' well-being goes well beyond this pandemic. He has spent his career fighting for worker safety as an attorney for the United Mine Workers, a senior official at the Department of Labor's Mine Safety and Health Administration during one of the best streaks of safety in the industry's history, and the executive director of WorkSafe, a workplace safety advocacy organization. Mr. Parker is an extremely well-qualified nominee to serve as Assistant Secretary of Occupational Safety and Health, and I look forward to working with him to protect workers, especially considering the dangers this pandemic continues to pose, which is why it continues to be so critical that OSHA issue an emergency temporary standard to protect all workers, especially frontline workers, from COVID-19. An OSHA ETS is long overdue and remains very necessary for the tens of millions of workers still at risk, and I urge the administration to act now and issue a standard to ensure all workers are safe in their workplaces. It's a goal we all share, and it's clear the nominees before us share it as well. Given their excellent qualifications and the critical work at hand, I'm pleased to support each of these nominees, and I hope after today's hearing, my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will work with me to get them quickly confirmed in a bipartisan way. I look forward to hearing from each of you about how we can make our economy truly work for working families in my state, in North Carolina, and across the country. And now, before I turn it over to Ranking Member Burr for his opening remarks, I ask unanimous consent to put in the record one letter in support of Mr. Nayak's nomination and a letter in support of Mr. Parker's nomination. So ordered. With that, I'll turn it over to Senator Burr.